Animals' leader's guitarist Tosin Abasi discussed his decision to leave Ibanez, who was building his new signature guitar, telling Guitar World. Ibanez was down to do it, but the prototyping process just proved to be really lengthy. It's not the fault of Ibanez, it's just the reality of large-scale manufacturing. Also, once you plug something like locking tuners into the actual math of the whole supply chain, you're quadrupling the cost of that particular feature. So things like that made it cost prohibitive to design the guitar exactly the way I wanted, even though we love Ibanez and the great work they're doing. Andy, Alt, Steve Vai's marketing director and creator of A Little Thunder pickups, and I were brainstorming, and he said, "Why don't you have Frank Falbo, who is a luthier, build your guitars?" I'd already commissioned an 8-string fan fret classical from him and worked with him on Fishman's Fluence pickup line, so I knew he was into innovative ideas that actually push the guitar forward as opposed to being arbitrarily different. I knew he was an extremely smart guy who's shown his abilities in very different ways. So the fact that he had the capacity to do the guitars, he's local and we already had a relationship, it was this perfect epiphany moment where I realized I had all the moving parts to take my design and do it the way I wanted. And it turns out I'm even more drawn to the processes of making guitars than I initially thought. Falbo said. It's evolved into a different instrument than Tosin's earlier prototypes, and it offers even more options. In this case, it's 6-string, 7-string, 8-string, multi-scale or straight, there are different color options and different wood options. There will be some set models, but we'll have the ability to add custom features if customers want them.
Animals' leaders guitar duo, Tosin Abasi and Javier Reyes, tackled a few interesting topics in one of the Rolling Stones' Young Guns series, one of them being the impact of grunge music. The good-natured Reyes held back from bashing the genre, but couldn't avoid noting that during the grunge explosion, he hated everything about it. He said, "When Nirvana and Soundgarden came out, I was probably the only kid I knew that was bummed out," he said with a laugh. "That music killed guitar playing. I remember watching music videos with Rudolf Schenker from the Scorpions or Angus Young from AC/DC just going nuts, and thinking that was the coolest stuff in the world. But then Kurt Cobain came out, and all that stuff was over. The only bands that were still doing solos were Pantera and Dream Theater, so that's what I gravitated to." On the other hand, Abasi had no problem with the grunge movement and even cites its representatives as early-day role models. He said, "I was really into Nirvana when I first started playing," he said, "but I had an older brother who played drums, and he got really into those modern drummer instructional videos, and most of those drummers played in bands with really awesome guitar players like John Petrucci of Dream Theater. And that's kind of how I started to change my playing style." Discussing music beyond the guitar-driven domain, Reyes shared an interesting notion that metal isn't the kind of music one would listen when going out. "We're fans of all sorts of music, particularly pop and dance music. When you're going out to the clubs, you don't really go out to listen to metal." As an early teenager, Abasi developed his interest in guitar-oriented music by listening to bands such as the Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, and Incubus. That stuff was definitely cool and dynamic. Even though they had vocals, the guitars were in the forefront. The focus of the band's sounds came from what the guitarist was doing. Next, Abasi fell under the spell of virtuosos like Yngwie Malmsteen, Greg Howe and John Petrucci. "Those guys really made a big impression on me," he says. "They just seemed to cover it all at once: composition, melody, sound, and just total creativity and mastery of the instrument. Listening to them gave me a lot to work toward. And wouldn't you know it? Malmsteen, Howe and Petrucci are all represented as Abasi runs down his choices for 10 essential guitar albums. We first start off with Steve Vai's Passion in Warfare. He said, "I bought it on a cassette tape. It was the first instrumental guitar-driven album I ever got. I just remember digging the riffs as much as the leads. Steve did a phenomenal job as an overall composer. These are complete songs, not just monster guitar chop exercises. The use of effects is fantastic. Steve put all of these cool vocal samples and weird bits of dialogue on the record. All around, it's a pretty immersive listening experience, very broad and imaginative. Yngwie Malmsteen, the Yngwie Malmsteen Collection. Absolutely incredible. Beyond his neoclassical playing is the sort of Hendrix stuff he would do. When he gets bluesy, he's just burning. He's been a huge influence on me. One of the best ever. I never scalloped one of my guitar necks, but I think I might get into it on a newer guitar. No joke. I played one the other day and liked it, so I'm going to experiment. Maybe I'll play some Ingui on it. Greg Howe, Introspection. Greg is unbelievable, and this album is just phenomenal. Beyond the chops and his incredible legato phrasing, there's some really great songs with choruses. It's instrumental, but there are moments where the music returns to a spot and you go, oh, that's the chorus, for sure. Greg is a brilliant melodic shredder. I think he stands apart from a lot of guys because of his melodicism, but he doesn't sacrifice his chops at all. He's a huge one for me. Dream Theater, Awake. Dream Theater covers so many styles of music, so it's easy to get lost in everything they're capable of doing. They can compose really wild progressive metal, but they can also work in parts that sound like Pink Floyd of the Beatles. So much musical depth. And, of course, you've got John Petrucci. Talk about a well-rounded player. Whether it's his riffs or his solos, or even just little licks here and there, everything he does is memorable. Scenes from a Memory is a really great album, but I think Awake is my favorite. I think I might have listened to this one the most. Guthrie Govan, Erotic Cakes. Guthrie is a super cool dude, and he just might be the perfect electric guitar player. Everything he does, I just go, right. Why would you want to do anything else? What an album. The songs are memorable, melodic and catchy. The chops are outlandish, there's odd metered stuff and cool tapping. Put all that together, captivating compositions and flat-out astounding guitar work, and you've got something massive. Alan Holdsworth, Secrets. Any Alan Holdsworth record is great, but Secrets is essential listening. It's hard to describe what he does, in a way. It's something you have to experience to fully understand. I was aware of Alan before I heard this record. I saw him talked about in a lot of places, but when I put on Secrets, that's when I was like, okay, I get it. Songs like City Nights are so beautifully unique and expressive. I'd call Alan Holdsworth a blessing to the world of music. Jimmy Herring, Lifeboat. Jimmy Herring is an amazing player. I don't know if underrated is a term I can fully apply, because anybody who knows his work loves him. But he's not at the forefront of guitar dudes, so I guess you could say he's a bit underground. His playing is extremely expressive. I think he comes from more of an R&B and blues background, but a lot of his hip, melodic concepts stem from modern jazz. His touch is amazing. He's got the right amount of chops and some really cool phrasing. Kurt Rosenwinkel, The Next Step. Kurt is maybe what some people would call post-bop. It's modern bebop. He has a really incredible sense of harmony, and his compositional skills are pretty high up there. This album kind of did it for me as far as jazz goes. It sealed the deal and made me a full-fledged jazz fan. Kurt avoids a lot of obvious tonalities. He exists in this in-between space of melody. Hearing him motivated me to expand my own playing and get beyond certain cliches. Adam Rogers, Apparitions. Adam is another modern jazz bebop guitarist who also studied classic guitar. He has a really unique sense of harmony, sensational compositional skills and just killer chops. This is a must-listen. I could say, listen to anything by Adam Rogers and not steer anybody wrong, but I have a certain fondness for this album. Check it out, and then seek out everything else with his name on it. Jonathan Kreisberg, Shadowless. Another great jazz guitarist with great chops and compositional smarts. He's pretty awesome. He'll make any guitarist think twice about what they're doing, unless they're already aware of him. Any record that you could pick up that has Jonathan Kreisberg on it is bound to be a worthwhile experience. I like Shadowless a lot. It's a really surprising listen from start to finish. In this video we will be talking about some of Tosin Abasi's favorite guitar pedals used for live rig, but also for writing and recording new music. We will first start off with the Friedman BEOD. This pedal is a great overdrive pedal which Tosin uses to get a great punchy distorted sound. He normally lowers the gain down on this pedal as his 8-string guitar peaks into bass territory, which gives him access to perform great thumping technique when performing songs like the midsection from The Woven Web and other songs like Arithmophobia. Another pedal that Tosin really likes is the Boomerang 3-phrase sampler. This pedal is a must-have if you're into looping guitar lines and using it to help write melodies in your songwriting process. But it's also very useful if you want to loop guitar lines on stage and improv with band members, which Tosin does frequently with animals as leaders. Another great effects pedal that Tosin is very fond of is the Bonner Harlow Boost. This pedal is a collaboration between Bonner Harlow and Rupert Neve. He mainly uses this for boosting his clean tones, but when used it sounds like your amp has gotten louder and the overall sound has expanded in size. This easily could be one of the best boost pedals on the market. The Strymon Big Sky could easily be his and many other people's favorite effects pedal. As quoted in interviews, he has said, "This is probably my favorite part of having these pedals. The Strymon stuff is just gorgeous." Tosin would be using this for heavy reverb and even layering atmospheric background for live shows, but there are loads of experimental ambient effects that you can get out of this pedal. The Precision Drive by Horizon Devices is another great pedal that Tosin uses all the time when playing on stage. Designed by Misha Mansour, guitarist from Periphery, this pedal focuses on what you're playing, trims some of the low end, gives you a much more large and slicey sound, but also gives you much more pick attack in your playing. This is a great pedal for adding more definition to your distorted sound, especially when you need to play heavy riffs and solos. This is something Tosin would use frequently when playing on stage to create a great punchy, gent tone. Overall, these pedals deliver what animals as leaders are most well known for and what Tosin Abasi would need when performing with the band. What do you think of this short list? Tell us your thoughts down below in the comments section. Thanks for watching.